Hello, I'm John Shepherd, and in this short video I'm going to answer a couple of questions that have been sent in to the YouTube channel. The three subjects are core training for the jumps and sprints, the quantity of sprint and plyometric training you should include in your training sessions across the training week, and also what type of longer running do I recommend for long and triple jumpers. Okay, how do you need to core train for the long and triple jump? Athletes can get a little bit carried away in terms of doing units of specific core training. Rather, what I try to do is integrate the type of core training required, type of core strength required for the jumps throughout the whole training program. So on a weekly basis we will be doing exercises that develop the core specifically for the needs of jumping. So for example, we will do work with bars held overhead whilst we do sprint drills, and also actually run with them. Now I have made a video on this subject on the channel, and it is aimed more at sprint technique, but the core has to be engaged to support the legs and the arms when running or doing drills without the use of the arms. So therefore there's a strengthening benefit. We also do certain types of plyometric exercises that engage the core in a more specific way for developing, for example, the landing required in the long jump or the triple jump, and you're going to be seeing a few of those on the screen now. You also need to consider that the core doesn't just involve the abdominals, the sides and the back, for example, but also the hips and the glutes and the hamstrings. So therefore, working specifically on those regions through targeted exercises will also be of benefit. So for example, we will do wall bar leg lifts and also various leg cycling drills performed, for example, between two boxes or from a stationary position. As I've said many times on this channel before, the hip flexors, the muscles at the top of your thighs that are responsible for pulling the leg to the front, and the hip extensors for drawing them back towards the body in the running cycle, are crucial for speed and power development, and they need to be focused on. And in a way, those are the core exercises or the core regions that to me need to be worked on the most. The abdominals, the sides and the back will get a secondary working through all the other exercises that we perform, but I will specifically target the hip flexors and the hip extensors because they are crucial to speed and power development. I have found that as the athletes get older, they don't require so much specific core work. Their posture is developed and their postural strength is developed through all the drills and the other activities that I refer to and which we do virtually all the time in our training. So again, as you may know, my training is very much integrationist. We include all the elements that will improve jumping and sprinting throughout the training week. We don't do a lump of this in one period and a lump of that in another period, as would be the case with more traditional linear periodization models. Rather, we're doing everything at the same time but just tweaking the emphases of each. So we can do core work as part of our warm-up, for example, with balance drills. We may even throw in some planks. It's all about using your training time wisely and as effectively as possible to get the most out of it. You only need a certain amount of core training, core strength, the strength that will prevent you from getting injury, or at least reduce the opportunity to get injuries, and also sufficient strength that will enable you to hold the positions required for the jumps and the sprints. I will make a more detailed video on this subject in future, but for now, hopefully these suggestions and answers and my way of training the core will give you some ideas as to how you can train your core too. And the second question comes from Fern, and she asks whether it's worth doing longer sprints or just focusing on shorter sprints if you are a long or a triple jumper. And I guess by shorter sprints she's referring to distances between 10 and 60 meters, and by longer sprints upward of 120 to 200 meters, for example. Now you have to understand the reason for doing longer sprints or longer speed work. You need to do it on occasions to develop base fitness. However, as a long jumper or a triple jumper, you don't need a huge amount of specific running base fitness. Unless you're going to also run the 200 meters or the 400 meters, you don't need to be doing lots of repeat 200s, 300s and 400 meters. That type of training is going to develop your anaerobic ability and your ability to tolerate lactic acid buildup or lactate buildup. For the long jump, we don't develop that amount of lactate in the system. An effort only lasts 4 to 5 seconds, and you do that 6 to 8 times in a competition. So you need to specifically train in order to develop that lactic tolerance, that immediate energy system, so that you can just switch on and switch off those short, high-powered bursts. The problem with doing too much longer running is that it will slow you down, as well as developing an energy system that you don't really need for the long and triple jump. You'll be targeting your intermediate fast twitch fibres more than your out and out power developing type 2B or type X fibres. Therefore, with sustained usage of such longer running, you will potentially slow yourself down. So we don't do a lot of that type of running, in fact hardly any at all. When we return to training at the beginning of the year, we may do some tempo 200s for a couple of weeks, only once a week. I rely on the quantity of drills that we do in our training to build up the specific relevant fitness for the long and triple jump. We may do 4 to 5 drill units in a session, and each one may have 8 drills over 20 to 30 meters in them. Therefore, you're developing very specific fitness, and the quantity of those drills and repetitions is what is going to give you the specific base needed for your event, or specifically, in our case, the long and the triple jump. Okay, so in the real workouts video, one of the later ones that's on the channel, about the spring transition from the indoor to the outdoor season, you'll see group members running 100, 120s and so forth. Now these we do to work on fluency of running, to hone down the sprinting technique, and we found that some of the jumpers in particular really benefit from this fast and fluent running. But we're not doing it to develop specific fitness, we're doing it to improve the specific running qualities and abilities and improve the top end speed of the jumpers in the group. A couple of session examples: 80, 100, 120, 100, 80, with a full recovery so that all the efforts can be done between 85 and 95% effort. Then we have one that takes that base a little bit further in terms of speed, so we'll do 120, 100, 80, 60, 60. So by going down the clock, as it were, the athlete can put in more speed, more effort into each run, so that they keep on top of their speed and they don't get into the state of having to run tired. Therefore, we're always looking at training near to the top edge of speed, so that we can just very easily move it up another gear and it won't interfere with the pure speed work that we're doing either. And the final question comes from Shane Giacami, and he asks about the quantity of plyometric and sprint training that you should do in a week. Now, in a way, I covered some of this in my previous answer about the length of runs that we do in our training. So we will always do some element of sprint and plyometric work in the group sessions that we do, and those take place 3 to 4 times a week. The jumpers that do train more than that will do weights, for example, on the 5th day or the 4th and 5th day, depending on the number of days that they train. So all of our sessions, and basically this is throughout the whole year, will include plyometrics and some form of speed work. This is because we can develop speed on speed on speed throughout the whole training year. We're never going to lose sight of the ability to run fast. Therefore, it should become very easy to always step up that speed level. And of course, we also do need to incorporate some deload weeks into the training. But the generality is waving on an ascendant basis, speed on speed and power as the season progresses from autumn all the way through to spring and then into summer. Do subscribe to the channel for additional content. For example, recently I interviewed Nelio Mura, who's one of the top coaches in the world, and Nelio was kind enough to send over some videos on assisted plyometrics, and I'm hoping to bring more of that type of content to the community section and also to the main channel. And of course, many thanks for subscribing. Go!